everyone, we're here with author C.J. Olsen. If you haven't heard of him, well, that's okay, because that's why we're here. We're going to talk about him and his awesome book, because, well, Michael Brent Collings recommended him, and you all know how we feel about him and his giant gold babies. So, tell us about yourself and your book.
Well, first and foremost, I have to say this is intimidating because Michael Brent kind of sets a sets a high precedent here. But so my name is Chandler Olsen. My pen name's C.J. Olsen. I wrote I'm writing the book series, The Eternal Alchemist. Book 1 is debuting here at FanX Salt Lake 2018. It's The Immortal Cure, and so it's an action adventure with an underlying tone of steampunk. Okay. So pretty much when I was like I wanted to write a series, but I knew like the dragons and magic and knights was kind of oversaturated a little bit, and then I started playing the video game BioShock Infinite. Okay. And that steampunk kind of feel of it really intrigued me, and I thought, okay, this is something I could totally. I would totally be into. So I traded the magic and dragons for alchemy and chimera and golem and whatnot. But the series follows along that lines. It's a 6-book series, so it's actually a trilogy of duologies. It's a really weird way of doing this, but I wanted to show kind of the development of this world over hundreds of years. And so books 1 and 2 follow the main character Charlotte, who she is the daughter of an immortal king. And she is looking for a way to reverse his immortality, the Immortal Cure. That's kind of the play on words for the title. She's looking for a way to reverse his immortality because he's kind of ruled over his land as a tyrant for hundreds and hundreds of years. So she escapes from the city. She gets with this ex-sky pirate named Alistair. He's on this kind of like your Han Solo not stereotype, but archetype character. They travel around. One of my inspirations, believe it or not, was the Tremors with Kevin Bacon, right? Right. I just love the idea of desert sand with something hidden underneath. Yeah. And so there's this whole part where they go to this desert called the Waste, and it has chimeras. They're these creatures, so they're creatures that are made from pieces of living beings and then brought to life with human souls. And so like there's this one, it's this giant worm with pelts of human skin, and it has a mane of human arms that digs through the sand underneath the sand and whatnot, right? So, so it's a fun adventure. But books 1 and 2 follow Alistair and Charlotte. And then book 3, between book 2 and book 3, there's a 100-year gap, and then it picks up with a whole different cast of characters. And it kind of begs the question, is immortality a blessing or a curse? You know, would it be good for someone? What would it do to someone if they had to sit for hundreds of years and watch this world change in good ways and bad? So that's kind of like my sales pitch there.
No, that's awesome. I would have to make an assumption that if we jump forward, the king's still around. Or am I wrong?
If you what?
I'm making the assumption that the king's still around if you're jumping forward a couple hundred years from between 2 and 3.
So I'll tell you this. The whole idea of it with immortals, there are immortal beings throughout. Okay. Now whether they succeed in killing the king in the first book, which or if he's alive through all 6 books, there's this mistake that was made early in this world's history by this immortal being, and he's talked about in the first book. And that mistake is kind of the theme of all 6 books, and carries through. And the protagonists and antagonists change throughout. But this mistake that was made, and is kind of the crux of the novel. It's the pinnacle point that this entire arc of stories kind of leans on.
Okay, that's really interesting. So why this idea of this mistake that's now woven throughout the whole series, because a lot of writers out there, they pick a main character, they follow that character from beginning to end of their story arc. You're doing little mini story arcs with a long mistake story arc, which transfers through several different characters in different eras.
So yeah, no. So originally when I was putting together an idea, I was like, I don't know if I can fit all this in a trilogy.
It's kind of crazy.
And then I was like, you know what? We're writers. We can break the rules. Like we don't, so yes. Going back to your original question with, which was you said something right at the beginning. You asked.
What about when you shot in
It's okay.
on stage with
Just the you have this mistake, and how does it weave through there?
Right, and why the structure?
And why that structure when it's so different?
Oh, well, I remember. So okay. So this is not a religious book by any means, but a real big theme of it is the hubris of man, right? So it's when man believes that he or she, man meaning general, but when we believe that everything is just on us, we have accomplished everything, and we've never been assisted by a deity or by others, and kind of that hubris, right? That's built among us, and like I was saying, this kind of underlying mistake is the cause of it was hubris, right? It was pride. It was man is God, kind of idea. And so that's kind of what it was. And in order to really develop this idea of man's hubris, you have to see it throughout the ages. Now, for instance, and there's connections. So book 3 and book 4, there's like relatives of the characters from the first 2 books, and kind of there's a connection through all that and stuff. But yeah, no, and so the structure's very strange in that way. But the other reason is I love, so big inspiration for me was Brandon Sanderson's writing. I love Brandon Sanderson. I think he is just a genius in how he puts things together. But I remember reading his Mistborn trilogy, and I read the first one, and I thought, wow, there's a trilogy here, I was like, that I could just reread that book over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want to write a big series, but I want each novel, or in this case, the 2 novels together, to be self-contained, right? And so I want to read books 1 and 2, and you could just read those 2, and experience the story there and what it has to say. Now you'll have some lingering questions, but you feel satisfied, and it's self-contained in that. But then you get this whole largely huge experience that ties everything together if you read all 6 books. So that was kind of the idea behind that, and the weird structure.
No, that works out perfectly. You mentioned Brandon, and you're right. With the Mistborn series, you had those 3 books, and now there's 4. And the character, Waxillian, is connected to Breeze.
Yes.
It may not be the main character, but he is still part of that original crew, and it just flows that story through. So that's actually brilliant, just to kind of go off that model.
Yeah.
So book 1's out now.
Book 1 is out.
When is book 2 out?
So book 1 is out. I have the entire structure written down. It's all worked out. I had to really work out kind of how it was all going to go before I even put pen to paper on the first one. Second one's mostly written. The idea is to do the early releases at FanX Salt Lake 2018, or not 2018, FanX Salt Lake every year. So I have most of the second one written. The plan is next year to have the second one released here. The actual release date for this is the 12th of September, so we're doing kind of this early release thing. But and then every subsequent year from there, I want to release another book. So I guess like in 6 years, you would have the entire series. And then I have some like single standalone novels I want to write in between all that. But really, so I guess like one thing I've been telling the people as they walk by is I just tell them my top 5 inspirations for this book. And if you're interested in none of those, you probably won't be interested in my book. But there's got to be something there you like. So the first and foremost, the Fullmetal Alchemist anime series was a huge inspiration for me. I've always loved anime, but I've always liked what anime does. It's willing to take chances that stories in the West just aren't as willing to take, you know. So there was that. The BioShock series, I said the Mummy trilogy. Brendan Fraser's just pure gold on film. He's much better. Like I said, Tremors, Kevin Bacon, and then of course Brandon Sanderson's writings. I actually had my wife give him a book while I was here, signed just said thank you, because he inspired me to write, and many other authors. And so yeah, if that interests any of your audience, this is the book for you.
Buy it. I'm just gonna say that. I'm sold. No, it's perfect. I love all of that. The film, the anime series, those are all great ones. So I'm gonna leave it with this, folks. But before we go, because most of them aren't here when they're listening, they can find you Facebook. Let's see, he's just throwing me this. So Instagram, you can find him at author_CJ_Olsen. That's with an EN. At Twitter, it's at author CJO. And then on Facebook, it's at The Eternal Alchemist. So do you have a website? There it is, theeternalalchemist.com. Look at that. Everything on the bookmark, which is awesome. So find it, the book, buy a copy, because you're going to love it, because you should. Well, plain and simple.
So it's the 12th. We're releasing the ebook through Amazon. We'll have the hard copies on sale there. I'll probably have a few more of the first editions on my personal eBay and Amazon. And then also the audiobook. The idea is to have an audiobook by the next con in 6 months. So in April.
All right. So you can pick up the book now. If you want to wait 6 months to get the audiobook, you can, but I'd suggest not. Pick up the book. It's always better to have the pages to turn, or pick up the ebook. Some people do love that. But then you can see the words. You can have it unfold before you, and you can get it now. Well, at least on the 12th if you're not here. So with that said, folks, we'll catch you next time.
Dungeon Crawlers.